entities within governments by other heads of state. By the House inviting Mr. Netanyahu, they are bypassing the normal State Department protocols. They are insulting the State Department and the White House. And you know, and I know that Bibi, if he comes and speaks to Congress, is going to be in favor, as he has been in the past, of the
I'm sorry,
Republican,
he's going to be in favor of.
as he has been in the past, of the Republican nominee for president. Um, I think what Johnson is doing, frankly, is insulting Biden.
Any other comments?
Makes sense.
This is big. No question. This is big. Any other comments? By the way, there is a precedent for the Speaker of the House to invite a head of state. This is not a break of precedent. It does happen. Yeah, I can't hear you, Sylvia. I can see you're angry as hell.
It's not precedent, it's protocol. I know it's happened before, and it's still a break in diplomatic protocol.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else want to pop in? Steve, brief?
That's what I'm saying. I don't think that the protocol is so rigid, number one. And I think at this point, both Bibi and the huge support Trump had in Israel, I don't think that that's so ironclad anymore. And a lot of minds have been changed. And I think Bibi will probably not even address that topic if he comes.
Okay. Okay, I see one last one. Herb.
Israel does not know better. They think they know better with this administration. But another one, a Labor one, would be an opposite. They actually know worse. And we, I think, United States can say that we think we know better than they do.
Okay. We have a divided house, and that's appropriate. I would be very surprised if this visit occurs, given the tension with the Saudi Arabia-America thing and the need to get Israel on board and the decision to put pressure on Bibi. I doubt that the visit will happen, but it's certainly being talked about. I don't look forward to it. I don't look forward to it. Bibi's support numbers in the United States are very low. And bringing him in is not going to change that. Okay, next, Rafah, R-A-F-A-H. Who can tell me what's going on with Rafah? Very important, very important. What's going on with Rafah? Steve.
Well, the Israelis successfully moved over 1 million people away from Rafah so they could conduct their operation, and recently apparently got to and destroyed 2 extremely prominent Hamas leaders.
Anyone else? In Rafah, the Israelis carried out a bombing assault, which led to, I think, like 40 people, 45 people being killed. So the condemnation was universal. Nations across the board condemned Israel. It was so bad that Bibi apologized. That's unusual. He apologized. Oops, didn't mean to do it. Then, yesterday, there seems to be evidence that in their attack, they hit a fuel storage facility, and that's what blew the place up. Okay? I can't comment. That's the answer. Israel has taken a huge black eye on this attack. And no one changes their mind. That's what Israelis do. They bomb women and children indiscriminately. They moved populations out, and then they bombed them in the place to which they were moved.
Oh my God.
So please, Harv, you had your hand up, I think.
Yeah, what bothers me about all of this, and it's really a question. In other wars, people don't make the assumption that the people you're fighting against are different than the army. In other words, when we were fighting in World War I or in World War II, or even in the Spanish-American War, we didn't assume that the population we were fighting against was not in cahoots with the army. But for some reason, the Israelis, they go to war, and the people they're fighting against are really not part of the people they're fighting against for some reason. And that's what I can't understand. Why isn't it, why doesn't the world see that the population in Gaza has supported Hamas? They're part of Hamas. Their kids are part of Hamas. They have kids to be part of Hamas, and I could go on. But that's what's bothering me about all of this. And sure, the Israelis shouldn't be blowing up civilians and so on and so forth. But are those people really civilians in the true sense of being civilians? That's my question.
You know that I am not unbiased. This group conversation is not intended to be unbiased. All of us have our biases. I have a few favorite columnists. One is Bret Stephens with the New York Times. And I would recommend, if you're so inclined, to go back and read some of Bret Stephens' columns about Israel. Now, he wrote the following, and this follows up on what you were saying, Harv. Bret Stephens wrote, right now, the Biden administration is trying to restrain Israel and aid Ukraine while operating under illusions. To restrain Israel and aid Ukraine. It is asking Israel to fight their wars in roughly the same way that the United States has fought its own wars, with limited means and with an eye toward the possibility of a negotiated settlement. How is it possible, Stephens writes, that even now Ukraine does not have F-16s to defend its own skies? That has been going on for over a year. And what Bret Stephens is saying is the United States wants the Israelis to fight this war with limited means, with a limited stomach for what it will take to win, and hoping for the possibility of a negotiated settlement. This is how the United States wants Israel to play. He thinks it's fatal. He thinks it's fatal. In the short run, the Biden approach may help relieve humanitarian distress. In the long run, it's a recipe for compelling our allies to lose. Goes on a little bit more. A peace deal, quotes, with Moscow that leaves it in possession of vast areas of Ukrainian territory is an invitation for a third invasion once Russia recapitalizes its forces. If what we're really looking for is Ukraine to surrender its claims on parts of the Western Ukraine, cede them to Russia in order to get a peace deal, the only logical outcome will be, in a while, another major invasion of Ukraine by Russia to take another hunk of the country. Steve.
You said Israel took a black eye, got a black eye for this recent invasion. And I actually think maybe not. It's irrelevant. If they fired a missile and got one person and it was Sinwar, it wouldn't change anything. Whatever they do or don't do at this point has no impact on the world or people's opinions of Israel. And what else can they do? There's no way to negotiate with Hamas. And everybody knows that, which is why no one in the world is saying, Hamas, ceasefire, Hamas, negotiate, Hamas this, Hamas feed your people. They think they can make demands on Israel, who somehow unilaterally can come up with a miraculous solution of two peaceful states and food for everybody. And if that's the environment you're living in, then Israel needs to do whatever it needs to do, because it's like Ukraine, it's like everywhere else. You know, if we let them win, then we're going to be sending soldiers to Poland to defend that border. We just can't let these countries go away, and they need far more support than we're giving them.
Any other comment before we move forward? This Brett Stevens article, by the way, he said something else. Do you remember the massive airlift of food and medical supplies to the Germans, French during World War II by the United States to prevent starvation, illness, disease? Do you remember that in the heat of battle, the United States was actively involved in preventing famine and illness in the European population? The answer is it didn't exist. What Israel, excuse me, what Israel is being asked to do is what no one else has done. You're fighting Hamas, you're fighting the Palestinians. Take a break and feed the people, bring in medical, do this, do that. Do that, Israel. Even though No one else has ever done that. Why? Why must Israel be such an outlier? Any thoughts on that? That's another big question. Okay, fine. I see Joanne.
Maybe it was wrong that nobody else ever did that and let people starve and die.
Yes, maybe they should have. Harv.
Well, we visited Amsterdam last year, and during World War II, near the end, the Allies were going to go and recapture Amsterdam, but the German commander threatened to flood the whole area and kill everybody. So we didn't. But we did airdrop food into Amsterdam so the people wouldn't starve. So that's one instance that the Allies did provide some
Thank you.
food, but in general, they didn't.
No, thank you. That helps me. That helps me. Any other comments before we move on? This is very unsettling, Steve.
Just one more quick comment, and that is Hamas has tons and tons of food, water, and gasoline that they hoard for themselves and don't give to the people they're supposed to govern on the grounds that that's the UN's job.
We have just a weird problem. The United Nations publishes data about rampant famine, little children dying, malnutrition. And yet, it seems, this is just Stanley saying, it seems, that more and more food is getting into Gaza. The problem is the old problem. It's being stolen. It's being taken by Hamas. Their families, their troops, they eat. So apparently, the reports of widespread famine may very well reflect a political decision, not a reality on the ground. The widespread famine. Now, northern Gaza, I have to say, is different. They got real trouble. But for southern Gaza, no. No. Okay, any other thoughts? And then we're going to move on to more interesting news. One of the things I hate reading is when a Jewish community leader stands up before a crowd and says, as a Jew, I think Israel should do X, Y, and Z. Do you really think that because you're Jewish, you have greater insight into what's going on militarily in Israel, Gaza? Answer, yes. You get these speakers at the big Federation dinners all the time. As a Jew, I know that we should do X, Y, and Z. Now, I think we'd all agree that as Jews, we possess superior intellect, superior wisdom, superior and you know what we see, should be given a great deal of weight. But there are some people who don't accept that argument. So last week, there was a big, did I say big? Big fundraiser at the Wiesenthal Center, the Holocaust Museum. The people had to sign over their children to be able to afford tickets to get in. It was very exclusive, very expensive. And if you were not there, how sad it is that you don't count. Because these were the people who counted. The final speaker last week was a gentleman by the name of Ari Emanuel. Does the name mean anything to anybody?
Will you say it again?
Sylvia, who is Ari Emanuel?
He's a Hollywood producer. I don't know. He's something in the entertainment industry. His brother Rahm Emanuel was Obama's chief of staff, and then he was somebody's ambassador to someplace I don't remember where. They're basically Chicago big mouths.
Rahm Emanuel was chief of staff to Obama and then was elected mayor
Mayor of Chicago.
Okay. But then he was
Mayor of
an
Chicago.
ambassador to someplace.
Ari and Rahm have a third brother who is one of the top epidemiologists in the United States. And during the COVID thing, you would see this Emanuel on television a lot. Now, who is Ari Emanuel?
I think it was Endeavor.
I'm sorry?
I think he created Endeavor, splitting from ICM. He's a big talent agent.
He runs the most important talent agency maybe in the country.
Mm-hmm.
He used to be very rich, but now he's made it. He is extremely powerful. So at the Museum of Tolerance fundraiser, they came up with a brilliant idea. Let's bring Ari Emanuel in as our closing big speaker. Sounds good, right? I mean, sounds good. Well, he spoke near the end of the evening and used the occasion to attack Bibi's government, call for the government's overthrow, great dissatisfaction with how Israel is pursuing the war, and the lack of a plan that will take Israel anywhere. Okay? Now use your imaginations. What happened at that such a black tie dinner? The black ties wore black ties. What do you think happened, Steve?
No, I don't know what happened. I was going to say, when you said, as a Jew, I think some people may have more thoughts or basis for thinking, but what annoys me isn't that they think they have something to say because they're Jewish. It's that they also, by saying that, are purporting to speak for all of us. So you can quote Ari Emanuel here, and 5 years ago you could have quoted Sheldon Adelson, taking an exact opposite point of view. None of them speak for all of us just because they're Jewish. And that's the part I find offensive more than the notion that they might have a better perspective for having an opinion.
The dinner exploded. People were livid. Now, I don't want to create an impression, but I have this impression of jewel-bedecked elderly Jewish women screaming at Ari Emanuel. It actually strikes me as a pretty funny scene, but there was 20 minutes left before the end of the program. A significant number of people got up and walked out. My medical aide, Gilroy, is in charge of some of the security at the museum. He was suddenly besieged by people who wanted to get their cars now so they could leave. And they had to rearrange all the security arrangements to get those really unhappy rich people out of the museum. To date, Ari Emanuel hasn't even commented on this, as in, I could care less, right? He said what he said. Was this the right setting for him to say what he said, even though I agree with I didn't hear the whole speech, but I think I agree with most of what he said. Timing. I'm a Jew. And I, by the way, am a multi-billionaire Jew. I control Hollywood. And this is what Israel must do. Steve, nobody liked it. Nobody liked it. I'm sure he was happy that he had a chance to say it to these people, to this particular group of people. I am just so sorry that I wasn't sitting on a balcony railing watching the reactions. It must have been delightful, delightful. And the fact that Emanuel had to leave with security escort, it doesn't prove anything, because I suspect he always goes everywhere with security escort. Okay, we have one more big item. Have you noticed how many people with a Harvard affiliation have chosen to speak up for Harvard during the student uprising and the protest groups and all the things that went on? If you could claim a Harvard degree, the press wanted to interview you on how Harvard should be acting. If you're a Harvard alum, what would you be doing right now to seek to influence Harvard's policy? If you were a multi-billionaire donor, if you were just a run-of-the-mill millionaire donor, if you're just a run-of-the-mill alumnus or alumna, what would you do to attack the policies of Harvard? What would you do? What works? Steve, then Harv.
Oh, you can, well, it's not just Harvard. I mean, when Stanford came out with its first message, I wrote a letter to the president. You alter your giving, you write letters, you sign petitions, and you hope that the word gets across. And of course, you work with the local Hillels because they are, on the ground actively fighting. In fact, the head of Hillel at Stanford was a rabbinic intern at University Synagogue when she was in rabbinic school. And you keep in touch with them and support Hillels around the country. And if everybody does that, ultimately it has an impact.
Harv?
I'd like to point out that maybe that's the only thing you can do, because as far as money goes, a lot of these universities, especially Harvard, has a huge endowment fund, and they are kind of insulated. Other universities, Northwestern's similar, and in addition, Northwestern has a campus in Qatar. So a lot of them have some insulation from monetary threats or taking away money that you donate, that sort of thing. And that, I guess that's my point.
Any other thoughts? How would you seek to influence your alma mater regarding Israel policy? Well, I am pleased to announce that there is now a color-coded spreadsheet classifying nearly 200 writers according to their views on the genocide in Gaza. A color-coded spreadsheet classifying 200 contemporary American authors according to their views on the genocide in Gaza. The spreadsheet has a clever title. Is your fave author a Zionist? Implication: if your favorite author is a Zionist, drop them. The reviewer says that this, your fave author, a Zionist, reads like a cross between Tiger Beat and the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. Wait. Various novelists earned a red pro-Israel classification because this author travels to Israel frequently and talks favorably about Israel. So that person gets a red notice. A novelist, not Jewish, posted a link to the Israeli chapter of the Red Cross.
This meeting is being recorded.
She was then deemed a Zionist. How dare she mention Red Cross? Then there was another one, not Jewish, who was deemed a Zionist on the spreadsheet because she delivered a book talk to Hadassah. I wish I could be making this up. I'm not. Needless to say, this is your fave author, a Zionist, has now garnered over 1 million hits over the past few days. What do you think about that? And the list encourages readers to boycott any work produced by Zionists. And I'm going to read the closing on this. The spreadsheet is but the crudest example of the virulently anti-Israel and increasingly anti-Semitic sentiment that has been coursing through the literary world since October 7th. Much of it revolves around the charge of genocide and seeks to punish Zionists and anyone else who refuses to explicitly denounce the Jewish state for having committed genocide. If you deny that Israel has committed genocide, you are on the hit list. Where does this take us? Where does it take us? We are being beaten into a corner. By the way, you and I both have read lots of passages which indicate that Israel's actions do not in any sense constitute a genocide. Now, that could be a little bit technical, but it is technical, that it's not genocide. But now, in the literary world, if you say that Israel is not committing a genocide, you have become an enemy of the angry left. I don't even know how to close off today's discussion. There is no sign that Israel is winning the PR war. None. Country after country from Western Europe has now recognized Palestine as a state. Another 3 countries came in this week. Nothing is being asked of the Palestinians to get that recognition. It's a declaration. We're with you. You get the last words, folks. Anyone else want to jump in? Help? While you're thinking of those last things, please don't forget June 5th, 9:45, great program with Sisterhood at Resnick. Great program. Anybody else want to jump in?
This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you for that. That's really helpful. Okay. I wish you all a good week. I have no idea what will be happening in our world on June 8th. Everything is floating, and that's where we are.
Will we have current events during the summer?
Well, that all depends. I mean, do things happen during the summer?
Will we have our classes during the summer? Let me say that better.
Okay, yeah, I can pretty much guarantee that I'm going to be trying to do this because it's not going in our favor. And we need to be aware. By the way, all of this joins together with what's going on in the courthouse right now in New York and waiting to see what the result will be. Everything is connected. Everything is connected. If Trump is not convicted, if Trump is convicted, it's going to have a huge impact on foreign policy and upon American relations with Israel. Steve, you have your hand? Or
I was just going to say, I mean, I'm not sure his conviction or non-conviction will impact, at least at this point, how people are going to vote, any policy of the government or anything else. Maybe down the road, other trials or whatever, but I think this verdict is really not going to have an impact on anything in the foreseeable future. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's fairly reasonable. If he's convicted of a felony, it'll bother some people. But his numbers continue to grow stronger. And
Nikki Haley went back on her word this week, and while she didn't endorse Trump, she said she will vote for him after being adamant that he wasn't qualified for the job.
thank God, Israeli politics are devoid of cynical lying, like American politics, right? Have a wonderful week, everybody. Thank you.
You too. Thank you for
You
always
too,
keeping us.
Reverend.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for
Water,
making
Merle.
us think.
Drink water.
Bye.